Part one of our Norman Rockwell project is pretending that we are Norman Rockwell and creating this background that has space. So to help us out, we're going to start with a trapezoid tracer. I'm going to get my name on the back of my big white sheet and I'm going to flip it over. My paper is tall, vertical in front of me. I'm going to take this trapezoid tracer and I am going to line up the bottom with the bottom of my paper. So that means I'm only really outlining on the side and the top and the other side. When I am tracing this, I'm going to make a little mark by these dashes on the tracer. That's going to help me line up my floor. So I was able to do that at the top. At the bottom, I'm going to have to kind of scoot my tracer up a little bit so I can make that little mark at the bottom of my white paper. Once you've done that, pass the tracer to the next person at your table to use. When everyone has used the tracer and lined up all those little marks, we're going to use our ruler to draw some vertical lines. So I'm trying to scoot this so you can see it in the video. My vertical lines are going to start at the top corners of my trapezoid and they're going to go all the way up to the top of the paper. I am using my ruler, and when I put my ruler on here, my ruler fits pretty perfect. It's almost exactly 12 inches to the top of my paper. You want that line to be straight. You don't want it to be falling over. So I am going to line it up with that dot, get my ruler as straight as possible, and I am going to draw my pencil line. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So what I'm doing is I am creating a space that has a back wall, a floor that goes out, and walls on each side. With your ruler, you are going to now line up all of these marks. So I'm going to take my mark at the top and I am going to line my ruler up with the mark at the bottom on that side, and I'm going to connect them. So this line is kind of angled. It's not straight up and down vertical. I'm going to line up my second notches and my third. My ruler, as it gets to the middle, is almost completely vertical, straight up and down. On the sides, they're kind of bending in. 1, 2, 3, 4. My fifth line starts to angle the other direction. 6, 7 lines. There it is. Now this is the trickiest part. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up with the top of that trapezoid, and I am going to draw a line at the bottom of the ruler. Still staying in that trapezoid shape. I'm not going all the way off the paper. I'm going to roll my ruler down or scoot it down. Now I'm going to line the top of my ruler up with that line I just drew, and I am going to make a line at the bottom of my ruler in that trapezoid shape. And again, line it up at the top, draw at the bottom. Line it up at the top, draw at the bottom, and I'm going to repeat this until I can't fit any more in. So there it is. I'm not going to try to put that tiny little space on there. I have drawn my background. My floor is checkerboard, my sides, my walls are still white, and the back wall is white. Now I'm going to take a Sharpie marker and I am going to outline all of these lines on the floor. Alright, if you're like me, I'm not perfect at outlining, so I always take a big eraser. You'll find them in the containers at your table, and I just erase any pencil lines that I still see. Just makes my artwork look neater. Now I'm ready to color like a checkerboard, which looks easy, but kids oftentimes get a little bit concerned, flustered, or confused. So I suggest you start with a pencil and you make a code. So if I am going to start by creating a checkerboard with white and purple, I would make the letter P and any square I'm going to color purple. So as I go across, I'm going to do one row at a time. Purple, that's going to be white. Purple, white. Purple, white, purple, white. So I know that when I see the letter P, I get to color it. As I make my code in my second row, my purples are not going to be in a line. I'm going to do opposites. So where I see a P, it's going to be white. Then the letter P, white. So as I start my third row matches my first row. Purple, white, purple. Blank, purple, blank, purple, blank, purple. So I'm going to continue, and you can start to see my pattern. Now this makes it coloring kind of like a color by number, and I won't make a mistake, hopefully. So make sure you're using nice markers. If they're not working well, put them in that basket on top of the cubbies that says markers that don't work, and use some nice markers. I would like everyone to start with just one color and white. If you finish coloring and you have time, you could add a second color. So that is pretty easy. As long as you do one color to start with, your second color is just going to go in those empty white spots. So I would continue with this purple on all the letter P's. My finished example has yellow and blue. So I did all the yellow first, then blue on the top. So as you are working on outlining with black marker and starting to color your floor, you are going to be called to the back counter to do your splatter paint, and you will also have your picture taken from the back. So at the back counter, you are going to get a small little piece of paper, and you will be working on the covered back counter. So for my demonstration, I'm just going to use a piece of white paper. So I am going to put my name on the back. Mrs. Cleary will probably do that for you. You're going to flip it over. And at the back counter, you will find lots of colors of paint. You want to make sure that you are using the brush that's with the cup of color you want. You can use as many colors of paint as you'd like, or you can use just one color. Totally up to you. So I am splattering onto this yellow, but I'm splattering so I don't get it everywhere. So I take a scoop of color, and instead of flinging the brush back and forth, I angle my brush so it's almost going to drip down, and I tap it with one finger, and I move that brush around. Notice how I've only gotten one scoop of paint, and I was able to splatter all over. Your splatter can be as simple as that. So you would return that brush to that color and bring your project to the drying rack when you're done. If you want to use more than one color, you can. Big scoop of paint, angle that brush down, and just a little tap. I have seen splatter paints with just a couple splatters. I have seen splatter paints where you can't see the yellow anymore. It's up to you how much you want. Big scoop of paint. Notice how close my brush is to that paper. I'm not holding it way up high. It's really close. That will help so your messes don't get everywhere. So just leave those dirty brushes by the color, and when you're finished, you probably will need to wash your hands before you go back and start working. To finish up our Jackson Pollock and Norman Rockwell project, you first want to finish outlining and coloring that floor area. So if you are somebody who just wanted one color and white on the floor, you can do that. If you're somebody who wants to fill in all those spaces with color, you can do that as well. You are going to get your picture back next. So on this picture of myself, I am just cutting around the outside outline of my body. Some of you might have some tricky spots, like right here, where my arm is kind of bent. So if you have a spot that you have to cut like that, I'll show you a couple tricks. You could bend that little spot and make a little cut with your scissors. Or you could gently take a pencil and kind of poke that area to get a hole. And then I'm going to carefully take the scissors and just cut out this triangle shape that's in the middle of my arm. So while you guys are cutting, you are going to get back your splatter paint. And you're also going to have a nice big brown piece of paper like a frame. So the order of gluing: brown paper first, then your splatter paint. And you're going to want to make sure you get lots of glue on there and really push it down because the papers are kind of curling. Then the last thing you're going to glue is the picture of yourself. So the cool thing about this is you could have your feet way down at the bottom, or you could move your picture up and have your feet much closer on the floor so it looks like you're much closer to the painting. If you move it down, it looks like you're further away. Move it up, it looks like you're closer. You can be to the side. The important thing is, though, your feet have to be on the checkerboard floor. Your feet cannot be up here because then you're floating, and that's kind of creepy. So once you have those three things glued on and your coloring is finished, your project is going to go in the drying rack.